Boris Epstein, who has played a key role since the election and before in helping Donald Trump staff his new White House and make cabinet selections, has been the subject of an internal review by Trump's own transition team into allegations that Boris Epstein has been seeking money from those interested in joining Donald Trump's cabinet, including Scott Bessent, who Trump nominated to be his Treasury Secretary last week. According to that review, Epstein met with Bessent in February at a time when it was widely known that he was interested in the Treasury post and proposed $30,000 to $40,000 a month to promote Mr. Bessent around Mar-a-Lago, Mr. Trump's estate in Florida. Bessent declined, according to the Times reporting. Bessent then called Epstein on November 14th to see whether he was criticizing Bessent to people around Trump. The review said Epstein told Bessent that it was, quote, too late to hire him and that he was Boris Epstein with an expletive swear word between the two names, Boris and Epstein.
The New York Times reported the most unsurprising news in Trump transition team history, that longtime ally and advisor Boris Epstein was charging potential cabinet nominees large fees for him to put in a good word for them.
A week later, Scott Bessent was nominated America's Treasury Secretary. So we can assume he will likely be following Trump to Washington. But Boris bleeping Epstein's future in Trump world appears to be in doubt.
They heard allegations from Scott Bessent and others that Boris Epstein was allegedly, we have not confirmed this, was trying to shake down people for access, for contracts, for money.
My father has been incredibly clear. You do not do that under any circumstance. And believe me, there will be repercussions if somebody was. I certainly hope the reporting's false. And I can also tell you, if it's true, the person will probably no longer be around.
So while some on the left began celebrating the possibility that Trump world will begin to collapse under the weight of someone not named Trump blatantly engaging in a pay-for-play scheme, they were hit with this dose of reality.
Trump and his kids are like talking about like the thread count on their like Castle Hotel in Scotland and bilking the Secret Service. But but the line is somewhere between that is MAGA ethical and Boris Epstein wanting a retainer to do PR for the cabinet fixes. Like, tell me about this line that's emerged and what they did to poor Boris.
Okay, wait, real fast. I don't know if there is a line though, Nicole. Boris isn't going anywhere.
Oh, so he's not.
Boris is not going anywhere. And if Boris does go somewhere, color me surprised. Boris has been here for 9 years in Donald Trump's orbit now. And the transition says that they did the review and they went and they saw everybody's contracts and consulting agreements. And there's no indication that Boris Epstein is going anywhere. I think, look, in Trump world, it is not a secret that people work out these consultancy deals, right?
They Rick Grinnell building hotels with Jayar somewhere.
There are questions about the extent to which they were working as foreign agents on behalf of other countries over the last 4 years. And there's people like Boris Epstein who are close to Donald Trump, who are taking consultancy agreements to help boost the profiles of some potential Trump allies, and in this case, Scott Bessent was one of them.
So while Vaughn Hilliard brought a little bit of reality to the MSNBC panel on the depth of corruption taking place in Trump's circle, he may not have had the chance to break down just how protected Epstein is, because The Guardian reported that Trump told aides at the Mar-a-Lago club from where he's running his presidential transition that he was irritated by what he viewed as an attempt to undercut my people. So when the Trump campaign's general counsel, David Warrington, conducted the investigation into Epstein over his corruption, it only gave Boris more clout with the mob boss, cementing the idea that he fits right in with Trump's orbit. Epstein denied the accusations and spent Tuesday evening with Trump, who was still riding high on the news that prosecutors had dismissed the 2 federal criminal cases against him, a victory he credited to Epstein, and was annoyed with the ouster attempt. All David Warrington did was potentially get himself booted from the inner circle for daring to investigate and accuse someone as loyal as Epstein of doing something Trump has openly condoned doing. And he definitely doesn't mind watching his lemmings fight over positions near his feet. That's because the reset happened as Epstein's allies continued to portray the internal review as an attempt by Warrington to remove Epstein after he successfully pushed for Bill McGinley to be the White House counsel rather than Warrington, who had also been in contention for the role. So in Upside Down Trump world, Warrington now looks like the opportunistic bad guy because he dared to investigate Boris and leak the investigation to the media while Epstein's faction badmouthed him for doing so. They chose the more corrupt side, But people like the former governor of Missouri, Eric Greitens, chose to side with Warrington against Epstein when he alleged that his interactions with Epstein gave him the impression that he had to engage in business dealings before he would advocate on his behalf. And let's not forget who Eric Greitens is.
The sitting Missouri governor, who was a Rhodes Scholar and a Navy SEAL, accused by his former hairdresser of coercing her into oral sex and threatening to blackmail her with nude photos of her to cover up their affair. That was nearly 4 years ago, forcing Eric Greitens to resign as Republicans threatened to impeach him after witness testimony detailed the startling accusations. Has he been exonerated?
Oh, absolutely not. It was deplorable, his behavior. It brought shame and disgrace on our state. It's just really, really disgusting.
It's not that he's not electable, but we're going to have to spend $40-50 million, the Republican Party is, to try and drag him across the finish line.
I served with Governor Greitens. He was unfit for office then, he's unfit for office now.
His accuser has never retracted the allegations of sexual assault, including that he taped her hands to pull-up rings as he allegedly took a picture of her with her pants down. Allegations all detailed in a GOP-led State House investigation.
You will find out there is no exoneration because it shows his basic character in a way that I think would be shocking to the average person if they just read it.
Greitens must have figured that if Trump is willing to nominate people like, Matt Gaetz and Pete Hegseth, he's got a shot with his dicey background looking like something Trump would be drawn to, especially since his abuse allegations spread further than his alleged blackmailing of a woman that he was involved with.
In a 41-page request to the court, Sheena Greitens outlined allegations of physical abuse and threats of political influence, saying that her former husband knocked me down and confiscated my cell phone, wallet, and keys. And in another incident, she saw him cuffing our then 3-year-old son across the face, yanking him around by his hair. She says he also threatened to use his political connections in their custody battle. Now Missouri politicians from both parties are condemning Greitens, calling for him to leave the Senate race.
Given what he's done in the past, he has a long history of criminal behavior, that he should be in a jail cell with other people like him and not anywhere near the United States Senate.
Fellow Republicans weigh in, calling him a lying, narcissistic sociopath, a fake, failed politician, and a terrible human being. Even his former campaign manager adding, disgusting, but not surprising, unfortunately. Sheena Greitens is one of the strongest, smartest, and best people I know.
All those very Trump-like allegations built up his resume in MAGA, but he made a huge mistake in siding against Boris Epstein's pay-for-play scheme, where his allies not only attacked Warrington for an investigation, but also went after Greitens' attorney, Tim Parlator, who was once also on the Trump legal team until he, of course, fell out with Epstein over his suggestion that the alleged scheme violated federal law.
A personal lawyer for any powerful person who is then getting consulting fees on the side to try to influence their own client, to use their own legal position to exert influence. I think that is illegal. It certainly is a violation of the ethical rules. I think that there's an honest services fraud argument to be made here. I do think that based on what I've read, and I haven't sat down and gone through the statutes, but to simply say that there's that this is not illegal, it violates numerous ethical rules, and I believe that it could violate some criminal laws as well. It's kind of depending on the day what Boris's position is. He always likes to talk about himself as the personal attorney for Donald Trump, the House counsel to Donald Trump, whether he's part of the campaign or whatever. But he does have a ethical obligation to the individual client. And I think that he violated that.
Okay, so quick recap. Boris Epstein was only called out for a scheme to make money off of putting in a good word for potential cabinet nominees because a few of the guys felt that they had kissed Trump's ass enough to avoid paying for extra clout. But since they underestimated the extent of Donald Trump's corrupt mindset, their moment of honesty and reverence for the rule of law has only gotten them pushed further from his inner circle, with his close ally reminding them once again that MAGA's version of draining the swamp is filling it with MAGA swamp creatures that actively fight for their own interests at the expense of the American people. But we can't blame anyone but ourselves, because it's exactly what MAGA told voters that they would do.
There's some individuals that would rather not have Boris Epstein be in this nucleus. I think that would be an accurate statement to say.
But you don't think he goes anywhere?
Boris has become a part in the last 2 years of this very small nucleus of people around Donald Trump that has been entrusted and Donald Trump keeps reliably turning to. I would be surprised if anything happens to Boris. I don't expect him to go into the government. I don't think that was ever his intention, but I would be surprised if Boris is no longer a part of this circle.